Hey Daetro, name's Michael. A close friend of mine recommended me your channel, and I hope you enjoy my story. It was around 1997, and I just turned 16. My parents decided to celebrate my birthday on our beachside house back in Batangas. I don't have any recollection of ever living in that house, because I grew up in the city, but oddly enough, the place seemed so familiar to me. It was around noon when my family and I had arrived at our house. I was already excited to look around and explore the property as soon as possible. But my dad abruptly stopped me and said, "I know you're excited, but can you at least help me unload our luggage?" And so, I was left with no choice but to pause my plans and help my dad. It took at least half an hour to sort our luggage and bring them to our respected rooms. I could only catch a glimpse of my room after I threw my bag on the floor, in a hurry to explore the area. I ran outside to immediately look around the vicinity, and it just hit me how beautiful the place was. You can hear the sound of the ocean in the distance, waves splashing, and the sound of tree leaves brushing whenever the wind blows. It was getting dark and there were no lights, and so I decided to rush home to avoid getting into an accident. I arrived at the front gate of our home when I noticed that the lights in my room were on. I don't recall ever flicking the switch on, which got me curious to why it was on. I thought to myself, Mom or Dad must have turned it on. I was just about to enter the house when I heard my dad suddenly call for me. "Michael." I shortly replied to him, "Yes, Dad," but he didn't reply. Again, I heard him call for me, "Michael." This time it was clear to me that his voice came from the kitchen. I went to the kitchen to see why he'd call for me. I asked him again, "What is it, Dad?" But after entering the kitchen, there was no sign of my dad to be found. I was so confused and a bit troubled at that point, but I paid no mind to it and brushed it off as my imagination. But then, the same thing happened. "Michael." The voice came from upstairs this time. It made me nervous, but I still decided to reply to my dad's voice. "What is it, Dad?" I wanted to hear a reply, anything even, but there was no replies exchanged. I mustered up the courage to slowly walk upstairs, and every step I took, the floorboards creaked, which got my heart pounding even faster. I slowly made my way towards my mom and dad's room, knocking before I gave the handle a slow twist, slowly peeking through the gap to see if anyone was there. As I entered the room, my dad jumped right in front of the gap to give me a fright. He yelled, "Boo!" I let out a scream in surprise and replied with, "Very funny, Dad." I asked him how he managed to call me in the kitchen when he was upstairs all along. He went silent and looked at me with a confused face. He took a short glance at my mom, who was sitting on the bed. Neither of them knew what I was talking about. I explained to them that I heard him call for me twice, once when I was outside and once in the kitchen. He denied both claims with a puzzled look on his face. He said he knew I was home after getting a quick glance at me from the window upstairs, which had an entire view of the front yard. I was disgruntled with what he said and didn't take his word for it. Annoyed with what had happened, I decided to ask him next. "What about the light in my room? Did you turn it on as well?" He replied with, "Your mom and I haven't gotten near your room since we arrived." My dad hated leaving any unused electrical appliances turned on, and it sent shivers down my spine after hearing what he said. It gave me the impression that we're probably not alone in the house. My dad gave me a pat on the back and said it was probably just traveling fatigue, and given that I went out in the heat to explore without rest made me imagine things. I fully knew and understood what I heard that time. I'm sure it wasn't just me imagining things. How are they going to explain the lights then? Dinner has just ended and I was ready to go to bed. I turned off the lights and lied down. Just when I was about to sleep, I heard a knock on the door. I was still upset about my parents who pranked me and decided to not answer the door, but the knocks got more aggressive. I got up to turn on my night lamp and raised my voice and asked, "Who is it?" But the knocks stopped. Shortly after, I heard my mom's voice. "Michael? Michael, I need your help." I sighed in relief and went to open the door. My chest tightened and I feel as if someone gripped my heart tightly after witnessing that there was no one on the other side of the door. I immediately ran towards my parents' room across the hallway shouting, "Ma! Pa!" which are what I normally call my parents. Slamming their door open with teary eyes and a pale face, they both immediately got up and asked me what had happened. I had to tell them what led to me to be so panicked. They were skeptical at first, but they understood that I'd never lie about these kinds of things. My mom urged me to sleep with them for tonight, and this gave me a sense of relief and decided to agree without a second thought. I slept comfortably that night, but soon got up when my dad woke me up. "Michael," he whispered while shaking me. "Wake up." I glanced at him and saw how tense his face was. He took his gun, a .45 caliber which he always brought for self-defense, from the drawer. After that, he handed me an army knife and told me to protect my mom. Just before I could finish asking him why and what was happening, I heard a violent knock on the door. My instincts kicked in and made me get up from bed to stand guard beside my mom, who was still quietly sleeping on the bed. I wasn't prepared for what might happen and was practically on autopilot the entire time. I watched my dad slowly open the door, maintaining distance from it as he pointed the gun through the gap. But as you'd expected, there was nobody on the other side. We checked around the hallway and it was empty. The floorboards would have creaked if someone were to run downstairs too, which further proved that no one was actually there. My dad and I went back to the room and locked the door, but we both couldn't sleep throughout that night. Morning came and the sun had risen, but we never decided to tell Mom. We went by with the day as we usually have, and Dad had asked Mom to shorten our stay from a week to just 3 days. My dad and I had never talked about this incident again, and I'm sure that it equally freaked him out as it did with me. Chloe and I have been together for over 2 years. We met at a coffee shop and I just happened to be daring enough to ask for her number, which then led to several dates until we became official. The first few months was awesome. We would always go out on dates, eating good food, watching movies, getting drunk together, making out, and making love. We were the perfect couple, inseparable, until we decided to move in together. She started to change, or maybe I did. I can't recall properly, but what I can recall is that Chloe kept comparing me to her ex-boyfriend Jason for the longest time. It just made me wonder if there was something wrong with me, or if I wasn't just good enough for her. The more examples she used, the more emotionally damaged I became. One day, I was streaming on my YouTube channel and asking for people to subscribe, saying, "Yo guys, I hope you're enjoying the horror content. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, or at least like the video," when I heard Chloe shouting from downstairs, calling my name. I had to end my stream and rush down to ask Chloe what she's angry about. I honestly couldn't remember her exact words, but it was something regarding the toilet seat. Then she compared me to Jason again, saying, "You know what? I wish you were like Jason. I never had to tell Jason to leave the toilet seat down." I totally snapped. I had to end my stream just for something so simple. I finally got fed up, and without telling Chloe, I decided to arrange a meeting for the three of us at our vacation house. Just me, Chloe, and Jason to let her pick which one of us would she want to be with. I texted Chloe to meet me up at our vacation house, which was a 2-hour drive from the house that we live in, telling her that I have a surprise for her. Soon as she got there, she rang the doorbell, and I shouted, "It's open!" Soon as she got in, she was surprised to see Jason there. She was so surprised that she fainted. This time, I knew that she wanted to be with Jason instead of me, so I decided to leave them alone in peace. I helped Jason in my car and carried the passed out Chloe as well. We drove for a bit until we reached Jason's place. I helped Jason back in his coffin and placed Chloe on top of his corpse and then closed the lid and started to cover it with soil. Halfway through, I can hear Chloe's screams. Probably the screams of joy, as she is once reunited with her one true love, who she speaks highly of all the time. And though I am sad that Chloe and I had to break up, I am selfless enough to understand true love and would never dare to get in between. My name is James. This is a story about a hunting experience with my brother during our childhood. Our family had recently just moved into one of our old houses for vacation. It was an old and decrepit house that was inherited by my father. The house was supposedly built around World War II, and since my brother and I grew up in the city, this was our first ever stay in the house. A storm was entering the country at that time, and me and my brother agreed that it would be a great idea to sleep in the basement. We brought candles and flashlights along with a few snacks, accompanied by our pillows and blankets. We had a long conversation as we played Pokemon the entire night. Soon came the time to finally sleep. We bid each other goodnight, sleeping on two opposite sides of one sofa. It was dark and I woke up to an eerie feeling of someone caressing my foot. I immediately told my brother, "Hey, knock it off before I punch you in the face." I never heard a reply, but it stopped the unwanted touching. A few minutes later, I feel him tapping my leg next. This prompted me to shout at him loudly, "I told you to knock it off!" And I stood up angrily with my fist clenched. But after looking around, I noticed that my brother wasn't lying down on the sofa with me anymore. He moved to the one directly on the opposite side of mine. He had a muddled look on his face and asked why I was shouting. I told him that he kept touching me while I was sleeping. He said it was impossible because he moved to the other sofa, and because of the exact same reason, both of us had a confused look on our faces. After a moment of silence between us, we heard a voice in the corner of the room. Psst. Not only once, but twice. Psst. This made us bolt out of the basement and run towards our parents' room. My dad seemed annoyed, asking us why we decided to bother them again, asking if this was another prank. Me and my brother asked our father what prank was he talking about, and he said that we kept knocking on their doors when they were sleeping. My brother started crying and it made my dad confused. My mother got up and asked us to tell them what had happened. We told them that we decided to sleep in the basement and someone kept touching me, followed by someone's voice calling us. Our mother doubted us at first because she apparently saw both me and my brother enter the room upstairs, but that was impossible because we slept in the basement. They believed us after we showed them that our belongings were all in the basement. My parents told us to just sleep with them in their room and they'll have the house blessed by a priest in the morning. This memory has been etched into me and my brother's mind ever since, and whenever we did stay at the house, the basement was a place that we never dared to enter. Hi Daetro, Dana here. If you've read my story, I'm sure you could tell for various reasons that I'd rather not disclose any information of where I'm from. Thank you for understanding. I've watched a few of your videos and there were some interesting stories being shared, so I figured I'd share mine. This isn't a ghost story, but I hope you still narrate it regardless. This took place when I was still a high schooler. Only me and my brother shared the house together because our parents worked abroad. My brother was in college during that time, but he never decided to rent a boarding room for my sake. And while he does come home late, I appreciate him still for accompanying me at home. He worries a lot about my well-being and he'd always call me around 10 or 11 p.m. to check up on me. Our neighbor had a lot of kind and lovely people and our family was well known within the district, so I thought to myself that his worries were unnecessary. School had ended for me and I was ready to go home one day. I walked by the 7-Eleven that I frequented to get a soft-served ice cream like I usually do. This was a few blocks away from my house, so I had to walk for quite some time to get home. The sun had already set when I arrived home. I was tired and just wanted some rest. Usually, my routine is to just spend my night watching television shows before finally going to bed. I prepared myself a meal and sat on the couch to watch cartoons until it was already almost past 10 p.m. I got drowsy that night, so I turned the TV and the lights off and went to bed, then passed out, completely forgetting about my older brother's phone call. I woke up at night to use the restroom when I heard a rustling sounds downstairs. I thought it was my brother at first and decided to go take a peek. But what I saw downstairs wasn't my brother, but a figure of a tall man with dark skin wearing a ski mask. I was in shock, and I had to back off slowly, trying to avoid getting noticed by the man. Walking slowly back to my room and locking my doors tight. I rummaged my bed for my phone, but it wasn't there. And then I realized that I must have left it on the couch. I covered myself in my blanket and hid behind my cabinet. I desperately prayed for help to come while I trembled in fear. I couldn't hold in my tears when the man had come to my door trying to open the handle aggressively. He was able to break my door open. He took his time searching my room and I was paralyzed in fear. And I didn't know what to do except to pray. Please don't find me. Please don't find me. I kept on repeating the same sentence in my mind while trying not to scream as tears kept falling from my eyes. That's when I heard a cop car siren from a street away, slowly approaching my house. I heard the man sprint out of my room. The police stormed the house in search for the burglar, but he was nowhere to be found. My neighbor apparently called the police when my brother had contacted them to tell them that I wasn't answering his phone calls. My neighbor replied that he saw a tall man entering the house and thought that it was my brother, but after confirming that it wasn't him, our neighbor made a swift decision to call the cops. My brother came home to fetch me that night, while the police investigated the house. The story ended peacefully and the burglar was caught hiding in the basement and was brought in custody. I, being a minor, was accompanied by my brother while the police got my statement. I hope for people who leave alone to practice caution and have their phones with them at all times, in case they are ever placed in the same situation.